United States Marine Corps is an institution forged in tradition. Its symbols are sacred, its identity unwavering. For over 200 years, it has stood as a monument to honor, courage, and commitment. But among the polished brass and the perfect uniforms, there is another, humbler icon, one made of simple steel and worn leather. And this object didn't just join the Marine Corps' traditions. It was the catalyst for a new kind of warrior. This is the story of how a simple blade didn't just help the Marines fight a war, it helped them redefine who they were. After the Great War, the world's armies prepared to fight the last war over again. They perfected their trench designs and polished their old doctrines. But the United States Marine Corps was looking elsewhere. They saw the future of warfare not in the mud of Europe, but in the vast blue expanse of the Pacific. Under the leadership of visionaries like General Holland M. Howland Mad Smith, the Corps was pioneering a new and terrifying form of combat, amphibious assault. They were becoming a rapid deployment force designed to storm fortified islands and fight isolated, brutal campaigns far from home. It was a complete reinvention, but there was a dangerous disconnect. While the Marines' strategy had leaped into the future, their personal equipment was stuck in the past. And nothing symbolized this crisis more than their standard-issue knife, the Mark I. The Mark I was a relic of a bygone slaughter. It was a one-trick pony, designed for killing in a trench and nothing else. It was useless for opening a ration can, for clearing a jungle vine, or for building a shelter. The Corps was training a new kind of warrior, a self-sufficient, adaptable fighter who could survive and win in any environment. But they were still arming him with the tools of his grandfather's war. This wasn't just an equipment problem, it was a crisis of identity. And as the world lurched once more towards global conflict, it was a crisis that threatened the very survival of the Marines on their next battlefield. The search for a new knife was a search for the Corps' new soul. They didn't just need a better weapon, they needed a tool that embodied their entire philosophy. The individual Marine was no longer a cog in a static battle line. He was now a self-sufficient survivor, a warrior expected to adapt and overcome any obstacle. His knife had to do the same. The result was a masterpiece of purpose-built design. The blade itself was a declaration of this new doctrine. 7 inches of high-carbon steel, it was long and strong enough for combat, but it was shaped for utility. It wasn't a fragile dagger. It could slice through jungle foliage, dig in sandy soil, and pry open a crate of ammunition without snapping. It was a tool of adaptation. The handle was a direct answer to the harsh realities of the Pacific. Not metal, which would slip with sweat and blood. Not wood, which could rot and crack in the oppressive humidity. It was stacked leather washers, compressed under immense pressure. The handle absorbed moisture, providing a secure, desperate grip when it mattered most. It was a tool built for the worst conditions on Earth. The thick steel pommel was perhaps the clearest signal of the knife's new role. It wasn't just for balance, it was a field-expedient hammer. In a single piece of equipment, a Marine had his weapon, his utility cutter, and his camp tool. It was a transformation. The Marine Corps had envisioned a new kind of warrior. And in the call bar, they had finally built the tool that would empower him to exist. But now it was time to prove that doctrine on the battlefield. A doctrine is just a theory. A knife is just a piece of steel. To mean anything, they must be tested. And the testing ground for the Ka bar would be the most brutal environment imaginable: the Pacific Theater. The jungles of the Pacific were not a battlefield, they were a living enemy. The heat, the rot, the disease, the constant, suffocating fear, it was a world designed to break a man down. And this is where the change began. For the first time, the individual Marine was equipped to master his environment, not just endure it. The K-bar was the key. It was the tool that opened his rations, hammered his shelter stakes, cleared his field of fire, and dug his foxhole in the black volcanic ash. In 1,000 small ways every single day, the knife gave him a measure of control over a world of absolute chaos. but its most profound impact was psychological. Imagine being that young Marine, thousands of miles from home, in a darkness so complete it feels alive. Your rifle is for the enemy you could see. The Ka-Bar? That was for the fear you could feel. It was 9 inches of American steel that said you were never truly helpless. It was the final silent argument. It was a promise that you had one more fight left in you, always. This newfound confidence was a weapon in itself. A Marine who could feed himself, shelter himself, and trust his equipment was a more resilient, more independent warrior. He could operate longer, farther, and with less support. The knife didn't just make his life easier, it made him a more lethal fighter. It fostered the very mindset of rugged self-reliance that the Corps' new doctrine demanded. The Marine Corps had sent a man to the Pacific, but the brutal realities of that war, combined with the perfect tool to conquer them, was forging someone new. The modern Marine was being born, a warrior defined not by the orders he followed, but by his innate ability to adapt, overcome, and win. The war that forged the Ka-Bar was over, but the change it had brought to the Marine Corps was permanent. And as the institution moved into new conflicts on the frozen hills of Korea and in the sweltering jungles of Vietnam, the knife went with them. Its unwavering presence cemented its status. It was no longer the new knife. It was simply the Marine Corps knife. But as the veterans of the Pacific campaigns grew older, the Ka-Bar began a second transformation. It evolved from a tool of war into a totem of shared experience. For that generation, the knife was a physical piece of their youth, a tangible link to the horrors and heroism they had witnessed. To bestow a Ka-Bar upon another Marine became the ultimate sign of respect. This reverence became woven into the very fabric of the Corps' culture. It became the honored instrument used to cut the cake at the Marine Corps birthday ball, a tradition linking the oldest and youngest Marines, a physical passing of the torch. It became the centerpiece of recruiting posters, its iconic silhouette a shorthand for the toughness and resilience the Corps promised. The knife was no longer just a piece of equipment on a checklist. It was now a symbol of the institution's soul. Carrying one wasn't just about utility anymore, it was a declaration of identity. A statement that you were part of the legacy that was born in the mud of Guadalcanal. The true legacy of the Ka-Bar is not measured in the number of enemies defeated or the number of tasks it performed. Its legacy is measured in the institution it helped to build. It was the right tool at the exact right moment in history to arm and empower a new, revolutionary doctrine. The knife did not just reflect the ideal of the modern Marine. Adaptable, resilient, and lethally self-reliant. It helped create him. It was the key that unlocked the full potential of a warrior, perfectly suited for the chaos of the 20th century and beyond. It is the unchanging, tangible link to the moment the Marine Corps was reborn in the crucible of island warfare. It is more than a knife. It is the symbol of a promise, forged in steel.